I think that's a good entry point also for us to go into a discussion this morning. We're discussing about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, blockchain, and the Internet of Things. And it's a good opportunity also for me to introduce my guest. If you saw us early in the morning, I introduced to you Mutembe Kariuki, who is the regional coordinator East Africa, Make It in Africa. This is a constituent of the German corporation GIZ. This is a mouthful for me. I can't really pronounce. I can't read German. All right.
It's German Development Corporation.
Yeah, German Development Corporation.
Yes.
Right. So how do you pronounce this? Is Deutsche
Gesellschaft für internationale Semester.
I'm telling you, that is a crack joke. For a morning, when you're trying to wake up in the morning. Thank you for joining us today. And also we have with us John Walubengo, who's a lecturer, ICT Multimedia University of Kenya. And also he's part of the task force that is making sure that people truly understand what blockchain is all about. Also we do have with us Dr. Bitange Ndemo, who is the chair of the task force as well, and he's a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. We have with us as well Harriet Chigai. She's the vice president of Law Society of Kenya. And we have Irungu Wagema, head of enterprise innovation, Nairobi Securities Exchange. And I think we are set to discuss a very interesting topic today. You can see we have our board here, Bona Professor. Today we want to be in the classroom, right? I know we had this session in January when people didn't really understand what blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is all about. But you've been also, you know, gallivanting the country so far, trying to, you know, educate the public, find the opinion. And there has been a lot that is happening as far as Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency is concerned. The World Bank now is offering, is it the first bond? Yes, is offering the first bond. And here in Kenya, Central Bank has been a bit gun-shy, saying, of course, there's no legal framework on how Bitcoin can operate or cryptocurrency. And this is the issues that we really want to discuss this morning. And for you, our viewers, you can actually head over to our Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is our Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is our profile name on Facebook. Make sure you give us a thumbs up there. And also 20686 is our SMS portal. So if you have questions that you want to paper to our panelists this morning, we'll give you that handy opportunity. Also, our numbers will be up on the screen for you to call and ask questions, share your contributions as well. But let's just begin from where we want to understand the basics, just down to the brass tacks. Blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, Internet of Things, they're all muddled up for the common viewer. These words may just be going way over their heads. We did this in January, and I think we need to refresh our the memories of our viewers this morning. Let's just begin with you, Mutembe. Blockchain, cryptocurrency, what else? Bitcoin, blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. What's the difference?
Okay, so as usual, whenever new technologies come up, there's usually a hype. So everybody's trying to figure out what all these things are. But so I'd say blockchain is the underlying technology, right? So cryptocurrencies are, you know, taking so what's a currency? It's a means of exchange. It's a store of value. So cryptocurrencies is, so what is crypto? Crypto is usually you encrypt something, you create a puzzle, so you need to use some passwords or some codes or some protocols so that you can be able to crack something and get the value from it. Mm-hmm. So what so there's we've mentioned blockchain, cryptocurrencies. The last one was
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Yes.
So Bitcoin is a currency, so it's a cryptocurrency. So within cryptocurrencies, you have some things like Litecoin. Then you have, on the basis of that, you can also build these coins using also Ethereum. Mm-hmm. So blockchain, if I would say, basically is it's like a distributed ledger. Mm-hmm. So you have in traditional times, you have your accounting, you have your ledger, you have, every day you put in your information saying that, okay, today there was this transaction that was done, tomorrow there's this other transaction during the day. So a blockchain is a series of those transactions put in a chain. So you collect them in one particular place where it cannot be changed. So the basic things about what a blockchain is that it can't be changed, it's immutable, it is easily shareable, so everybody has a copy of that, so nobody can ever say that one day that, okay, I have the information and nobody else has it, so it is shared across. You can't change it, and it's transparent. And another thing about this is that it is usually the underlying thing is that you have to use a lot of energy to be able to get any particular information from that. So one of the things that a lot of people are complaining about this is that it consumes a lot of energy. That's why a lot of times you're finding that blockchain technologies, it's usually coming from the West, so colder climates, because you need a lot of computing power.
Thank you. Right. Let's hear from... Yes.
Can I add to what he has said?
Yes, please.
And since I'm a teacher, I demonstrate here.
Yeah, we'll give you an opportunity to do that.
Because you need to understand what blockchain is. Before you have now mixed.
We mixed everything.
Vegetables, food, whatnot, everything.
Yeah, and that's why I want you to decipher for us, because I was saying all these things, they go way over our head. When we talk about cryptocurrency, we can't really understand what it is. We cannot uncouple that from blockchain. We cannot uncouple that maybe from also Bitcoin. And I think also demonstration will be helpful for us. You asked
Mutembe everything. And someone is struggling to get what?
Yes.
Because he has to finish answering. He's doing a very good job.
Right. So we'll give you that opportunity to head over to that flipboard to just tell us a bit about how you can demonstrate so that we can get an apt understanding of these terminologies. Let's hear from Walubengo. And maybe you can just give us also an insight of what the task force has been doing so far, consultation. I don't know if you were given any time frame, because it's supposed to be submitting the report to the ICT minister. So we want to know how far you've gone so far, and what are some of the things you're learning on the ground. Good morning.
Okay, thank you. But on the last bit, I think I will leave it to the chair of the task force to elaborate.
Yes.
But on the definitions and all that, maybe I could add on what you were saying. Using simpler words, blockchain is actually a new form of a database. We are all familiar with databases. You find that any organization will have a database. Whether it's a bank, it will have a database of its customers, or if it's IEBC, is going to have a database of its citizens who are voting. If it's Ministry of Lands, they also have a database on the land transactions. So what blockchain does is to share control of that database. So that it's not under one entity. Instead, the control is dispersed and distributed to multiple entities, such that no single entity has authority to change, modify that database. So that's a very powerful property of blockchain technology that is really being used to create the cryptocurrency. So the difference between blockchain and cryptocurrency or Bitcoin is the difference you'll get between the internet and, let's say, email or YouTube or Skype. So the internet is the underlying technology that makes email possible, or YouTube or any other application that floats on top of internet. So blockchain is the underlying infrastructure, and cryptocurrencies are just one application, one use case that is taking advantage of the blockchain.
Thank you. Of course, legal framework is paramount for this to be operating. And the question has been in the public domain, should cryptocurrency be declared legal tender? And this is where, Harriet, you come in with your legal mind right now. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much. One thing I must say is that cryptocurrency is here to stay. If you look at the global market and the way globalization is taking shape, there is no way we can say it's something that you can ignore right now.
Yes.
And for the legal fraternity, this is now the opportunity, and I hope the task force has lawyers on board, because it's important that all stakeholders play a key role in terms of coming up with an integrated legal framework that can actually shape how these transactions are done. One thing that we need to appreciate, and something that even lawyers need to take in consideration in terms of how they want to improve their future practices as we go on, we need to be able to come up with systems, or rather empower ourselves with how we are going to manage complex financial transactions, both locally and internationally, because you'll realize right now as we speak, you can actually transact with, you can actually buy a car using Bitcoin from China.
Yes.
So how then are you going to integrate the legal framework in that country and what we have here and with the global market for us to be able to have these complex financial transactions? The future is actually within the cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Blockchain. You remember when Uber landed,
yes,
everybody was very skeptical about it. And for those who were in business, completely refused to board. But after some time, they've realized actually Uber has made,
the way to go.
Yeah, is the way to go. Has made the clients happy, has made their work very easy. You don't need to pay parking anymore because you can always be on mobile. You can have the different apps for you to be able to serve different clientele at a minimum time frame. So you realize there's no way, we are not going back. So it's high time that we embrace blockchain technology, we embrace the e-platforms of how we transact business, and then come on the table and be part of the policy makers and be part of the decision makers. We shape how we want these systems integrated within ours, and then we move forward. And just like you've said, currently as we speak, there is no legal framework. We are all operating, and that is one very high risk area.
Yes.
You know, it's high risk because currently as we speak, I'm sure, and Mwalimu will tell us that we have enough agents who are not legit, but they're in the market. How do you deal with these criminals? I call them criminals because it's a criminal act if you have to be a fake agency trying to transact within an international platform,
yes,
and you're actually transacting on fraudulent processes and conning quite a number of people. So then how do you deal with these issues? Do we have investigative muscle to ensure that we are able to curb with the risks that emanate from this kind of technology?
Yes.
Are we well equipped as lawyers to be able to handle this kind of criminal activities? How is our investigative framework? You know, so it's important that we all come on the table. It's important now that we think Kenya 50 years from now and start shaping those policies. It's important we start thinking as and evaluating our businesses locally in terms of international platform and prepare ourselves.
Thank you.
For the future.
Right, thank you. Let's see for Mirongo, and also just looking at what we had inside the Business Daily on Friday, where we have World Bank launches World First. Yeah, there you go. Let me try and zoom out a bit so that you can see it clearly. It says World Bank launches first blockchain public bond. So Nairobi Security Exchange will tell us of, in light of this, is this now a green light for you also to make sure that, yes, we are following suit with what the World Bank is doing?
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, even for having us on this panel. I think that was really a remarkable step forward, and even it has opened a lot, especially in terms of the users. I think like any technology,
yes,
there has to be a need. So looking at probably like the bond market, is there a need for us to use this? And really, I know even as we hear from from the faculties, the lawyers and everybody else, also the marketplace has a big role to play. I remember at the beginning of last year, we launched Makiba, and when we are selling to some people, they are talking about them, they want to buy Bitcoins. So definitely, and there's need in the market. And so I feel like even the centralized institution or the different institutions should actually be able to embrace. So when it comes to things like bonds, one of the use cases for blockchain is cryptocurrency, and it's not everything. And many people confuse blockchain with Bitcoin, but that is not the case, and also cryptocurrencies. But there are other uses that can be there for blockchain. So one use is that one of cryptocurrencies, because it allows for the transfer of value, unlike the internet paradigm. Internet paradigm, if you're sending an email, you're left with a copy, another one goes to the other side. But with blockchain, it allows you to actually transfer a token, it actually goes to the other person and you're not left with a copy. That's why it has been used even for cryptocurrency. And then that is only one use. We also have another use where we have smart contracts.
Yes,
a smart contract is an auto-executing legal document. So for example, when you look at a bond is really like a loan that you are giving, say, to a government or a corporate, and then they pay back. So you can automate that whole process by having it every time you have interest payment, it is automatically executed on due date.
Yes.
And then at the end of the period, you get the money back. So that is what the World Bank, working with the Australian Exchange, are trying to do. And even us here, we are not yet, we are not quiet about it. Of course, we've engaged the Commission, we've done our submission to them, and we are looking at how can we deploy this here in Kenya. Again, like she said, the legal framework becomes very important because people don't want to be defrauded. So we are also working very closely with our regulator, where we are saying, even for the Kenyan market, how do we make this a reality? And the approach that has been taken is a sandbox approach, where we are saying, well, we may not fully understand this blockchain fully and its full potential, but let it run in a governed environment where we are monitoring closely, but not to stifle the innovation. So for now, I can say that even as the first World Bond has been commissioned, it hasn't really probably gone live. So we still have a chance also as Africa. Why not be also the first people? Because it has been commissioned to start, but probably it has not yet gone live. They haven't started trading. Yeah, so it is an opportunity. It's a very viable use case. And even as you talk about green bonds in Kenya, I think green bonds also, the whole issue about green bonds is really a bond that you want to see where did the money go to. And especially when corruption is rife, especially in Africa, one wants to really trace every transaction. So again, blockchain comes as a very viable solution to that, whereby you're able to trace every transaction. So I feel there's plenty of opportunity in our space, and like what the CMA has taken, where it is supportive, we should actually go that direction.
Right, and interestingly enough also, we had in Nyeri this particular story about Bitcoins taking roots in a town there. Despite CBK warning, there's a kiosk. Is it a kiosk? Actually, it's a restaurant, and it says trading in cryptocurrency has found a new heaven in Nyeri, thriving right under the nose of authorities, despite a stark warning by the banking sector regulator. While the law prohibits the use of any other currency other than the legal tender, Kenyans can now pay for food in Nyeri town using Bitcoins. So already people are trading in the country, but it's not really a legal tender. So is this an illegality? Before we take a short break, briefly, let's hear from Mutembe. Then we'll come to you, Professor.
I actually wanted to defer to Professor because, you know, I don't think that was a problem. There's always going to be use cases already being used. For example, if you have, you know, Twiga Foods and IBM already, you know, testing out a blockchain operation on something. So I don't know what is illegal. Is it illegal with the block? So as we said, Professor also mentioned that we are batching a lot of things together.
Yes, I get it.
Blockchain, I don't think that's illegal. There's a lot of applications that can be used. I think UNICEF recently even did a challenge on trying to ask innovators to create solutions that can be done for maternal health on blockchain. Because the idea is, what is it solving? It's solving challenges of trust, you know, of transparency of information.
Okay.
So I think it's quite okay that it's being used. Yeah, because you're solving problems. Always look at what problem is this technology coming to solve. It's trust, it's distribution of data, it's transparency of that data, it's easy access for that data.
Thank you. So, Professor, we'll give you just an opportunity, 2 seconds, to tell us what you'll be teaching us briefly after the break. We want to take a short break right now. So then what can Kenyans look out to when you go now?
You know, being a teacher,
yes,
I sympathize with Kenyans because we are here to simplify. But then we complicate. I thought we would start very slowly. Very slowly. So that everybody is with us.
So we should have started with the teacher first.
Everybody understands.
Then we ask questions.
Everybody understands, oh, they conclude by themselves that actually I can use it. But now, you know, we are saying blockchain, Bitcoin, whatnot.
Ethereum.
Then people start walking away from TV without understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. So, welcome back. You're watching In the Market here on AM Live, and today we're discussing cryptocurrency, blockchains, and also Bitcoins and the Internet of Things. if you are joining us this morning, of course, we are also asking, do you think that the cryptocurrency should be declared or made a legal tender? That's a question that we're asking you this morning. Do you think the cryptocurrency should be declared a legal tender? We want to hear and understand how can we uncouple and get clarity as far as definition of this is concerned. Blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency, what are they? If they've been going way over your head, we have the chair of a task force that has been touted also to make sure the Kenyans, all Kenyan citizens, really understand what blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency is all about. And I'm holding court this morning with me, Mutembe Kariuki, who's Make It in Africa, the regional coordinator, East Africa. This is from GIZ. And also we have with us Mr. John Walubengo. John Walubengo is a lecturer at ICT Multimedia University of Kenya. Harry Chigai, she's the Vice President of Law Society of Kenya. And also we have with us as well Irungu Wagema, who is the Head of Enterprise Innovation, Nairobi Security Exchange. And right now we have Bitange Ndembo, who is a professor, and he is going to tell us more about this to demonstrate what all this issues that we're discussing about blockchain, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin is all about. Professor, over to you.
The current state of things, I'm going to use IEBC.
Yes.
When they were conducting elections last year.
Yes.
IEBC I would go to run for office of governor, for
Yes.
example. I didn't run. And they would tell me, we need your KRA clearance.
Yes.
We need to know where you went to university. We need to know that you cleared your loan, that your loans at HELP.
Mm-hmm.
So when they send you to collect this information by yourself, sometimes if you didn't get the university degree,
Yes.
and you get some middle person here whom you would ask at the university to give you or to help you achieve your goals. This is now where corruption comes in, and someone gives you a certificate. Of course, HELP has no way of validating that certificate. Or you go to HELP and you get some record which is not correct. And these problems, or you go to KRA and you get a fake clearance document. People do get such things. Now, the people who made the blockchain said, if these people digitize, yeah, and here is digitized, yeah?
Yes.
You don't need this person. You don't need this person. What you would need is to link this one to this one, to this one, to this one. Now you have created a chain. Mm-hmm. And the data is available online. So when you walk into IEBC, they would ask you to sign a form. You give them permission to check this from these places, including CID here, whether you have had any criminal record. Mm-hmm. Within a split second, because this is digitized, and if your name is here, Ndemo, you never cleared your tax, there is nobody in between who is going to give a fake certificate. But KRA would confirm or say that this man owes 1 million shillings. It comes to IEBC. It takes a minute if everything is digitized, and the databases, this is what Walubengo was saying, the databases are linked. If they are linked, then it takes a split second, you get that answer. Once you have the answer, IEBC will tell you, my friend, you don't qualify to run for the office of governor. Now, what I have said here can actually be replicated by a nation here from one department to the other. Sometimes you need something from here from accounts. If you had a blockchain and everything is digitized, you don't have to call somebody that, can you please give me that record? If those records are in electronic format, you actually access them. When you want to search Ndemo on Google, you don't ask anybody questions to give you that. And if you don't get, you can look from another site. So this is what blockchain intends to achieve by getting your databases linked to one another. Now, when they are linked, the information on myself that is here will be the same as here, the same as here. Yeah, distributed. That's why sometimes they are called distributed ledgers, meaning that you can try to delete here, and that deletion actually can be seen in all places at once. That's what we call distributed ledgers, because the record here has been distributed to help to KRA, to universities, and IEBC can access that. Now, take this into the Auditor General and the government. The Auditor General does not have to wait a whole year to say we have lost 4 billion in this ministry.
Yes.
If they are linked, this is Auditor General, this is the Ministry A, and they are all linked, he would actually see that 1 billion has been transferred from here to here. And then he can say, this is uncharacteristic. And they would say, before that is paid, can you come and explain? Now you're beginning to see the application and its potential to remove the corruption aspects, if you are able to see upfront. In fact, in terms of data, the way data is being analyzed, we shouldn't be seeing these headlines. We should be using predictive data analytics, which is part of what you would see here. That two of the most powerful technologies and artificial intelligence are the ones that are going to run the world in the next several years. Blockchain and artificial intelligence. I am not a prophet, but this is what everybody is working towards. This is what was being discussed at the World Economic Forum, how blockchain would help. Blockchain, World Bank is using it to do a bond. What they did is that they didn't have to go through some middlemen to do the arrangement, because there is a cost to that. If you want to buy a bond, you can buy. Here is the details. You can buy directly without using that middle person. And anybody who buys, who is within the block, is able to see what's happening, the way the trading is happening. And that's probably what we want to see from CMA. CMA to implement this so that the Capital Markets Authority can begin to raise money locally to develop our own enterprises. That facility is not there. And the simplest definition of this is trying to automate trust. Because if you have created that level of transparency, everybody can trust one another. Now, the missing link from here is what government would have to build, what is called a trusted identity. You heard the minister saying that they are going to start issuing biometric identity cards. Yeah, biometric. If you have put that biometric, it can actually identify the records from all that place. So once we have an identity that can be validated, it actually makes the business environment, even yourself, to say, put your biometric here, I know it is you, and I know you work for so-and-so, and I know you do this, and I know you're no criminal, then I'm able to trust you without having to know you for several years to trust you. So blockchain seeks to create trust where there is no trust.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. I bet also our panelists have questions for you before you sit down. Let's just begin with Mutembe. You have a question for Professor?
Yes, because also part of the topic for today is about the Internet of Things. And all we've talked about is data.
Yeah.
So how do you see the Internet of Things facilitating blockchain and artificial intelligence to really open up this new world of trust for us?
I'll give you an example to understand this. A company in the US was planning to provide insurance to employers. And they told the employees, you fill the form. And there was a question at the end that said, please do not lie. Make sure that everything that you have said is true. There was one question, whether they smoke or they don't smoke. So some two guys said they don't smoke because they knew nobody would know. But the insurance was collecting data from department stores from all over the place to validate the data that was done, only to find that those two guys who lied that they don't smoke, they have been buying cigarettes from a department store, and big enough to conclude that this person is a smoker. That aspect is actually possible if you use Internet of Things. You have you can manage your operations by getting information from multiple sources, which you would use to validate the information before the insurance. Of course, they came back to the company and said, you have two smokers. We cannot give them this premium. They are of higher risk. We'll give you a higher premium. And of course, the form said, if you lied, you lose your job. They lost their job. So Internet of Things is a supporting technology that would support both this and the blockchain. Some other people can apply it to look at the operations. For example, at the airport, you want to know how those assets move, you know. If you find some guy forgot his sweater across the facilities, and then he gets on to a vehicle and drives through, that's a cost, which is not supposed to be organizational cost. That you begin to ask questions.
Thank you.
What is happening?
Right.
Yes.
Let's hear from Walubengo. You have a question for Professor?
For Prof, you had asked him earlier about the traders in Nyeri who are using Bitcoin.
Yes.
Is that illegal? He has not answered that.
Is that illegal?
There is no illegality because, Kenyans tend to be, to look at 50 million people or 40 something. I don't know what our population is. The world has become a very small village. When we pay for things online, it is not illegal. When these people go online and buy that, we are a free market economy, laissez-faire. Let the buyer beware. And I don't know what the legal, what you would say about it. It is the buyer to be aware. If they are willing to buy and sell, I don't think there is an illegality. But there is a thin line also. Even Demo created his own cryptocurrency and begins to trade. That's a different matter because nobody has looked at that to protect the customer. So what we are doing in the task force, we are working from the risk side. How do we protect the customer?
Yes.
In fact, we have been talking to CMA, Central Bank, all the financial regulators. Yes. How do we protect the consumers? And with the minister's approval, we would not release the report without having concurrence of the regulators because we cannot operate outside the regulator. Yesterday, I had a chance to talk to all of the financial regulators in Mombasa. So we are doing this as the entire government, not as just the Ministry of Information and Communication.
Right, thank you. Let's just hear from Harriet, because I know Harriet also, as Law Society of Kenya, you had moved to the courts to,
No, we have been. They have been also coming to our task force.
Okay, your
we
forum.
Consulted with them always.
Okay, but a memorandum of, maybe you can tell us more about the memorandum.
Before I go there, maybe I can weigh in the illegality of the trading that is already taking in place.
The illegality?
Whether it's illegal or not. The interesting thing about blockchain technology is that all you don't even need an office. All you need is actually a smartphone, and you're able to transact. We have in place the Consumer Protection Act.
Yes.
And the only issues that will come to play is whether the agency owners are legit, whether what they're selling is legit or it's a fraudulent transaction. So that would be the illegality. But the fact that they've created the platform to buy and sell, I don't think that is an illegality, because even as we speak right now, as I'd earlier said, there's no legal framework in place. So what framework will we be prosecuting the persons who are already operating as agents? And then, just like I said, this is a global market. It is open. It is free for all. It's open. It's an open market. So it's whether you want to dive in or not. So it's a choice that both the buyer and the seller has to put in place. Again, we are very interested in the task force, because just like I said, even all professions are going to be affected in one way or another. And that is why my question will come, because as it is right now, blockchain technology is in place for us to be able to have a trustworthy transaction, and at the backdrop to eliminate any level of corruption. For me, I think that is a plus, because if we have systems that work, then we don't need middlemen who are going to do the brokerage, which has been the reasons as to why it's almost impossible to kill the monkey called corruption. I call it a monkey because when you kill it here, it jumps to another tree. You know, when it jumps to another tree, it goes to another forest, and whoop, it grows. So that is why for me, it's important. And we want to hear from Mwalimu today, because we've been speculating.
Thank you.
We've been pushing each other with rumors, because, you know, it's very difficult to trust that which you cannot see.
Thank you. Maybe before you answer that, we can also hear from Irungu. You have a question for him as well, so that you can just take a mental note of that as well.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And I really like and commend the task force for the commendable job that they are doing. I think as Kenya, we should not be left behind. We should actually be at the forefront. Kenya is looked upon as the Silicon Savannah of even the world now. Yeah. So especially with M-Pesa. So mine is really maybe to give assurance to the regulators and even government, because I think the key concern when it is distributed, before everybody would bring all the taxes and they would be able to get. But if we have this new way of transacting that does not, maybe how do you assure KRA they're going to still get their taxes? And also, and I'm sure the concern even for like maybe central bank, the consumer is protected.
Very good. Actually, the blockchain in itself, when it's implemented, when you pay, say for example, you have lunch, and in that lunch there is 15% or 16% VAT, which belongs to Kenya Revenue Authority. With blockchain, you don't, the vendor, the hotelier or whatever, does not take that money. What happens is the moment you pay, and if you pay using any digital currency, and not cryptocurrency, that money would go straight to KRA, and you remain what belongs to you. Yeah? What we are implementing is give Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and remain with what you legitimately. Legitimately. The other question from Harriet, every profession is going to be affected, and the more, once we implement this, the legal society has to find ways of working with technology to make money. Let me explain it. Irongo talked about the smart contracts. These smart contracts are drawn by the lawyers, but then they are put into an algorithm to execute. They are self-executing contracts. So you have a block of 30 apartments. What used to happen is that when I go with Mutembe, Walubengo, we pay a lawyer for the same thing, the same paper. We put our names and we pay 10% to the lawyer. Blockchain removes that and says, put it in the system. These guys would come and sign it, and you get your flat. Yeah? That removes a lot of revenue from the legal fraternity. But there is also a lot of revenue they can make in drawing those smart contracts if they embrace the technology. So there are some who may not hurry up to move towards technology, meaning they would have to find other means of making.
Right, thank you. Maybe before I let you go and just back to your seat, you had mentioned about IBC, and I'd seen also this was being carried actually at the East African, where they're saying Paul's agency could use blockchain. And this was IBC, and then it read the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is considering using blockchain technology to offer real-time results as part of reform efforts to enhance the integrity of voting. And this is an issue that we've been battling with. I think that is very key. You can clarify that?
Let me explain that.
Yes.
Remember we said the problem comes with the middle person.
Yes.
If I voted here, yeah, and we are in a block of 390-something constituencies.
295?
295. That vote will be reflected in 295. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to say my votes were stolen, because you are seeing it real time happening, adding up. And that's why if they removed that darkness where things go dark and then the results comes, and everybody knows I'm doing good or I'm doing bad, wonderful. We are hoping that we could start like with the civic elections now and test the system before we are able to deploy it at the end.
I can see a little bit.
Yeah, just to add on what he's saying, blockchain in electoral process will be very good, because currently IBC is the single entity in charge of those computer systems. But earlier on I'd said what blockchain does is it distributes control, such that any change to the electoral records cannot be accomplished unless the multiple players are in agreement. And that agreement is not physical, it's not manual, it's within the system. So what I see is, for example, IBC getting together the key stakeholders, whether it's the political parties, the Law Society of Kenya, judiciary. Each of these key players will be running a node that has the software for the electoral system, so that if the results are out, you don't have to say fungua server. You have the server, fungua yako.
You can verify.
Yeah, on your own. So that to me will be a key changer in 2022 if they're really serious.
Right. We have also, Mutube, you have a question?
My question is in terms of the impact of blockchain on something such as healthcare, because a lot of times you hear of people like, sadly I had a friend of mine who mentioned to me that their uncle passed away because of misdiagnosis. So how do you see blockchain impacting the healthcare sector so that people can be able to get good services?
Huge cost. Our referral systems for the hospitals, someone breaks his leg in Murang'a, goes to Murang'a District Hospital, County Hospital, and then that person is referred to the National Referral Hospital.
Yes.
And all the data is left behind, and the cost of actually examining that patient is repeated again at the national level. Now, if we had a blockchain, the doctor who would be in Kenyatta would say, the doctors in Murang'a did A,
yes.
Now I need to do better than this to diagnose this patient. Meaning that cost that would have been repeated has actually been removed. Or for example, you have traveled abroad and you're being treated. The doctors there would have the entire record of your data,
yes,
which saves you time and money. So the other aspect of this is savings of time and money. That is what blockchain brings.
All right. Yeah, can we hear, well, I hope I've not jumped you. Let's hear from Harriet, then we'll come to you.
All right. Mine first is to slightly feed into the voting system.
Yes, please.
And marry to the question that I have for Professor. You know very well, one of the key issues that we are struggling with is data. Data collection and data feeds. And then how do we store that data? As we speak right now, one of the biggest problems we have, even within our voting fraternity, is the kind of data that we have. If you ask me whether I can comfortably clarify that we are 50 million Kenyans, you know, already that is questionable, because our data most of the time is not clear. We don't know how many people, how many lives we lost in the year 2017. And with those lives, have we updated the data within our systems to ensure that the kind of data we have is a clean data? Also, the one other risk that we have is the risk of what you feed into a system is what it generates in terms of results. So if you feed the wrong data in any system, it gives you wrong results. Now, that is one of the issues or the black holes we are having in terms of integrating all our systems. That's why you see KRA has integrated one element. They go live, but we are stuck. We are stuck because when it tries, that system tries to marry it with another one, it crashes because the other one is completely disjointed. So then what solutions do we have? And this is one thing I think the task force must address, to ensure that we have the correct data within all this, the institutions that we need to have before we actually load any or integrate any of these systems in place. And that is one of the problems we had. Now I'm coming back to the land registry. That was the issue we had with lawyers. Because if you have a system, you want it to go live. Personally, I'm not a computer geek, but the little I know about systems is you cannot go live, yet the processes of you processing the process are not clear. You know, the lawyers come in last in terms of processing or in terms of conveyancing. Before you reach the lawyers, there are certain steps that should have been undertaken before lawyers come in, load and upload and clear those documents up to the final transaction. And that was the key problem we had. If you've not loaded the land surveyors, how do we verify those documents? You go to the land surveyors, their data is completely wrong. A lot of properties were never registered, and that is why we are in this gray and black area.
So it's simply coming down to the garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
We digitize the garbage.
Exactly. And what we are saying is that let us go live with everybody on board. And you cannot take a system and make it go live, yet you've not even tested it.
Thank you. Right.
But I can defend the government here that our national ID has worked very well. Actually, if you find the private sector using it, it has worked very well. But the Minister for Communication has said that for us to develop integrity in the individual database, we have to do biometrics. That is the sole purpose is doing that. India has done that and has hugely succeeded. When I hear people trying to oppose biometrics, then you are actually saying we can be having garbage working for us and we fight about the garbage. So biometrics is what would actually bring stability. And of course, there are other databases, I know. IEBC should not be collecting data for voting if we had biometric for everybody. I mean, if the National Registration Board, the data, the integrity of that data is intact, they would just say, if you are over 15, you can actually go vote. This is exactly what Brazil do. Everybody is registered, and you don't have to incur another cost to create for a voters register, because you already have the biometrics of the people. Why would you need to register again?
And that's the other thing.
Like to support what Professor said.
Yeah.
Because the beauty of technology like blockchain and adding AI to that is that AI, you can develop algorithms which detect fraud over time. So they can be able to understand, okay, this is probably fraudulent data that's coming into the system, and can be able to detect, okay, where it's actually coming from, because again, in the blockchain, you can always know what's happening. And then you can be able to sift out that particular data. So that's the beauty of
you
these
have
technologies.
multiple validation centers, multiple validation. If you can't validate it from, and I'm sure what the president has said on universal health,
yes,
it's going to be another ID, because everybody must be registered in order to access that. You can actually validate that this person died, should not be voting. And there are several points of validation, and that can be done independently. And that's what we're hoping to see.
Thank you very much for that. And I think that one is very good. And just to build on that then, what we are agreeing is that we don't need multiple identities. If I have my ID, then it should be able to serve as my passport as well.
If you heard me correctly,
yes,
we are building a trusted identity. A trusted identity.
Well, it's a smart sort of identity.
It's a smart, it validates with the, once you, actually it's even better. When you go to the bank, you fill in the form, Harriet, a couple of identifiers are ready. The form will be filled by itself because that data is online. That would enable inclusivity, because there are some people who cannot go to the bank. They are being asked your address, your whatever. So what the whole system will do would bring everybody into the same basket. And then we can begin from there to manage it so that it is not contaminated, because as you said, there is, I talked about artificial intelligence, which is one. We have no choice. There is no country that has no choice, because blockchain is the new road that is being built. There will be so many applications, like Mutembe said, so many applications that will run on this. When internet came, we dragged our feet for 10 years, others exploited it. When mobility came, we kept on calling, others exploited it.
Okay.
Blockchain has come, we know what it will deliver. We must exploit the potential.
All right. I want us also, because we are looking at time, and we want to cover a lot before we finish this morning. The risk aspect of it, because a lack of framework to regulate them, they become, of course, in the industry, people become vulnerable to international criminal syndicates that we know. Also, in the absence of cross-border regulatory framework, it becomes also impossible for a single country like Kenya to issue also an effective framework. These are things that we need to discuss here this morning, because this has been the bugbear and fear of a central bank, that since we don't have a legal framework, people now may get this to be a spawning ground for money laundering as far as economic crime is concerned.
This thing doesn't work outside the law, and the fear. So
is it clarity and communication from central bank as far as illegality or legality of it is concerned? What is the problem?
Actually, it helps, because even today, with all the laws, with everything, we have something called dark web.
Yeah, the dark web, yes.
Where corruption people are working comfortably and nobody's seeing them, yeah? But what happens with the blockchain, it's very easy to know that I have obtained money from an unknown source, yeah? Because the whole aspect we are talking here, if we had time, is about data and data points. There is no decision that will be made without data. Where did it come from? Right now, you actually don't quite know, because people clean money from several other sources and they continue. There are other risks, by the way, that around cybersecurity, we need to develop capacity. You know, we need to learn from other countries that have been attacked, what they did. We must have a national strategy on cybersecurity. That's how we can secure, because as I said, every organization would have digital data. Someone can knock it, even if you have copies in other areas, it will destabilize your operations.
Right.
So that's what, then AI has its own risks. Like if the machines are self-learning, we may not know what they will do. You know, they may plan other things, but that is something we can we can manage.
Any question on the cyber security of it? Because he talks of a dark web. I don't know. We can actually try and explore that issue of security. Maybe just to set as a segue to that particular questions, because we have government who have been victims as well, and they were forced to pay ransom to rescue their database. or else they could be wiped in a minute. This is emanating from the dark web. And the issue is about the anonymity, anonymity, I should say, of cryptocurrencies, starting with the guy who came up with this, Satoshi, that ensured that there was no trail to the operation powerhouse.
But you have to exchange. You would eventually come to an exchange point to get the money.
Doesn't this really also compromise the security features? I don't know. You, the techies,
from where I sit, I think the security concerns from central bank could be a bit valid, because if you're Central Bank of Kenya and you're in charge of the monetary policy in the country, and you don't have the statistics of how much value you have in that sovereignty of yours, because half of it is in cryptocurrencies and the other half is in fiat money. So in terms of managing that economy, you really don't have the full picture. So they could be having a valid point in terms of how do we account for citizens who have assets in crypto, format, and yet they're not able to access it, whether for tax purposes or whatever. Then the other concern they usually have now from the security side is money laundering and what have you. But from the technology side, the response has always been, even if you have cash money, the normal fiat money, there's still money laundering going on. So you cannot stop technology under the pretext that you're protecting the economy when the existing system is already facing similar challenges. In short, the risks facing fiat money are the same risks facing cryptocurrencies. So rather than blocking it, I think we need to have a sort of multi-stakeholder approach that tries to understand what is going on and how we can mitigate the risks without necessarily blocking the advantages. And so the idea of regulatory sandboxes comes in very strongly, where the technology startups are given a safe environment where they try out these new technologies, maybe 2-3 months, and the regulators get to learn what these technologies can do, what the risks involved, and how then do you mitigate? I think that is the best approach, rather than saying it's dangerous, let's not go there.
Could you take a question from
Irongo
before Professor, could you take a question from Irongo as well, so that we can couple them together because of time?
All right, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I really like to glide on what Dr. Mr. Walubengo has said about, you see, Kenyans are very innovative. We need to have an enabling culture whereby these people, because the world is flat, everybody, you can transact anywhere. How do we empower Kenyans to actually come up with these innovations? Because government alone will not be able to do it. Can we have also maybe in a sandbox way whereby maybe people, even entrepreneurs, can actually come innovate and all that? And even for us from the stock exchange, we are really keen on seeing how we can add value so that we can help people to be able to raise funds, maybe for those initiatives, because sometimes blockchain can be a bit expensive. How can we also regularize, maybe like working with the regulator to be able to help Kenyans discover this potential and have Kenyans take a lead in this technology?
Let me just weigh in also on that. I think the biggest fear...
Could we have him answer then so that we don't lose track of yes,
I thought you would ask him why, if we have fiat currency, why do we need cryptocurrency? There is a movement where we call it tokenization of the economy. It is continuing. We have so many tokens in this country. We have Bunga points, we have supermarkets issues. Those are tokens which are value, and this is going to continue. And what we are saying, if we enable the cryptocurrency, we can create jobs, and we have developed ways of creating those jobs by tokenizing the process. And once something is done, you can redeem the tokens and get value out of it. This is what the normal currency cannot do, but we can do it with crypto. That's why we're also saying we need to give it a chance to demonstrate what can be done to create more employment for Kenyans using the currency itself.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mutumbe, you had a question before we come to Harry.
It was a question and also an addition. So when we're talking about when we talk about our work at GIZ at Make IT, it's always working with startups and innovative startups. And what we've realized is yes, there are a lot of young people who are actually developing solutions around this. And one of the partners that we've been engaging with is IBM. And they have now the DNA, so it's called Digital Nations Africa, where you can actually go up and there's hours and hours of content where young people can learn these new skills. So for example, the IBM CEO, she recently mentioned that in the future we'll be she coined a new word, so it's called new collar jobs. So we used to talk about blue collar, white collar, now new collar.
Yeah.
And the idea is that with this Digital Nations Africa right now, any Kenyan with an internet access can go up, create a profile for themselves, and start taking blockchain classes on how to actually build applications on blockchain for different use cases. Whether we see right now what Twiga is doing in terms of their supply chain for goods like tomatoes, bananas, whether it's Cellulant is also developing something around that for smallholder farmers. We have now, but this is an American organization, DOC. You have LinkedIn, and a lot of people put a lot of information on LinkedIn which may not be true about their profession and what they can do. But what if you had a trusted source where you can always identify what skills someone has? So within even this Digital Nations Africa, you can get badges in terms of what skills you're gaining and then where you can work in the future. So just wanted to add on that, and then also ask what are some of the ways Kenyans can actually learn how to build applications and actually use blockchain coming from Kenyan institutions.
The companies that are using blockchain, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, they are the fastest growing. You have Twiga Food, you have Victory Fish Farms, and we are quarreling this. We are seeing these companies moving forward. This is what we must learn. I don't want to leave here without talking about artificial intelligence. I said it's one of the technologies that would power the economies going forward. Artificial intelligence does not just remove people from work. It actually helps, enhances, especially in education, where human beings cannot do. For example, we have a small startup called Mshule, which uses AI to teach. Yeah? Human beings have no patience to do what AI can do, you know. A machine can repeat the same to you for 20 times. And the best teachers can only do it for 3 times before they tell you, wacha Mungu akusaidie. You know, this is some of the things we need to think about.
Finally, let's hear from Harriet before you sit down.
Thank you very much. One of the key things that I think we are all grappling with is the risk on systematic economic changes. You find that within the Africa setup, we don't even have a common currency. So how then are we going to interlink our currencies and then our trade within the region to build up into the system? And then we have our safeguards towards the same. And I think that is what all the economies are grappling with, which is now bringing in the trust within the system. And then the other key thing that maybe, Professor, you can address or help us clear is the high risk of hacking and whether an economy can actually be shut down by one button, you know, just a touch or one encryption within the system, or throw in the mud in terms of what do they call it, a virus, and you shut down the whole system, because that is the fear that most everyone of us is having. And that is why even central bank is saying, hold on a little bit until we get to understand these systems and how they work. So maybe that is one of the key areas that you can also just quickly highlight, so that even when we are shaping the regulatory framework, we have all this in mind, and then we can all move forward.
Every organization has what they call business continuity plans, and Olubengo can even speak more on that. Yes, we can be attacked. You remember Russia attacked
Ukraine and
you, yes, and they just shut down everything. But if you have, as I said earlier, the biggest threat is actually cybersecurity. What are we going to do? We must build capacity. When I keep on talking about capacity, we can't, for example, say we wait to understand this technology. We actually must move that direction to build capacity in order for us to play some role in this new technology. And this is where we're asking the government, they have to spend a little more money because nobody's willing to pay for these many young people to get this knowledge that is required for these emerging technologies.
Thank you.
on
Right.
security.
On security, finally, yes.
Just the idea of a single button to shut down the system is precisely the philosophy behind blockchain. There is no single point of failure in blockchain, as compared to what we've been having since time immemorial, what we call technically client-server systems. In a client-server environment, the IT director can switch off the system and go home. You remember last petition, we were told the French are asleep, so we can't access the server. That's typical of client-server systems. I'm not saying they were asleep, but basically that's an argument that can apply in prevailing systems. In a blockchain environment, you have distributed control. I could shut down my server, but yours is up and running. So the system is forever running.
Thank you.
However, there is still a risk, but not at the system level. It's at the individual level. So if you have cryptocurrencies, you are responsible for the security of your passwords, your PINs, and what have you. Because if you lose that, or somebody hacks into that, then you lose all your assets.
Thank you, thank you. All right, maybe I can also let you just take your seat as we're winding up as well. And this should be a question to you, Irungu. Finally, as we're winding up also, this will be also maybe your closing remarks as well. Because the CMA, the Capital Markets Authority, is also warning investors against taking part in initial coin offering. We have the bond here from the World Bank right now. Do you think this flies in the face of what Capital Markets Authority is warning about? Of course, those are two diametrically different, but of course, the same notion is underpinning this particular warning.
All right. Yeah, I think that's a very pertinent issue. Yesterday, I was discussing with someone from outside the country, and what they were saying is that most of the ICOs, like CMA is warning, is that most of them, they say a coin offering is really like an IPO, like we had Safaricom IPO. But now what people are doing, and especially entrepreneurs, is that you come up with a coin, like what Professor said, a Bitange coin. And then you raise money from people, and then once you raise money, you say you want to do a particular maybe blockchain application. Maybe the Bitange coin will be teaching people about blockchain. So, and the resources will go there. But some of them do not eventually end up doing that. So hence the warning from CMA is really to protect Kenyans from just being gullible and just buying into any coin. But what we can also do is we see maybe of a legitimate way. I like the sandbox approach because they're also giving a solution. Why can't we have many entrepreneurs with brilliant ideas. We can also use it to raise money legitimately.
Thank you, Rongo. Harriet, your closing remarks, 30 seconds.
For me, I think blockchain is going to affect all the professions cutting across board. And it's high time they all come on board and participate in decision making, having to put in place proper policies that will shape the kind of systems we want to have, noting that you cannot regulate the bitcoins or the currency itself, but you can regulate the systems that are put in place or the agencies that have been put in place to operate this system. So it's important that we all participate.
Right. Well, briefly, 30 seconds.
No problem. For me, the focus should be on the underlying technology, blockchain, which is very transformative. Cryptocurrency, yes, it's good to have, but we do not, it's not a must to have. It's not mandatory that you run the two together. So if we could get blockchain use cases in government, we'll be way ahead, and then the crypto bit can come on top later.
Thank you.
No problem.
Right. Let's hear from Motembe.
So mine is to the innovators and entrepreneurs out there. At the beginning of the century, the technologies that were being focused on was social, mobile, and cloud. And those are the ones that brought us people like Facebook, Uber, Spotify. If you want to create the next $100 million, billion-dollar companies, the place to go is blockchain, AI, IoT. And that's where you'll have the next corruption killer, the next disruptor of even M-Pesa. Finally, let's hear from the chair, Dr. Bitange Ndemo.
I want to thank you for giving us the chance, because just discussing this begins the discourse that is very necessary for this country, that we jump into this new technology and exploit it like Americans exploited internet, they exploited mobility. In all those phases, we were asleep. I hope Kenyans wake up now, as Mutembe has said, so that we can create some 1 or 2 unicorns out of this country.
Thank you. I really want